Hello and welcome to Horror Boys, the number one horror movie podcast in all of the internet. That's right. I'm making bold statements because it's all my opinion, and my opinion means nothing. So,
Hey.
I'm Austin, joined as always by
Chris and
Isaiah.
That's right. We are the Horror Boys.
and
And
nothing
my
is
Horror
funny
Boys
at all.
here are laughing because they've been idiots before stream / video, not stream, recording.
Yeah,
Let's jump
we're
right into
recording.
this movie, though, because this is 6.5 pages of notes, so no beating around the bush. Let's get right into Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. We opened this movie with a Edgar Allan Poe quote about sleep being like death, because why not? We opened that before we go into our credits, and the credits are first it seemed like we were going to get like a very Friday the 13th-esque credits over nothing, but that didn't last for long. We did start getting a scene behind the credits, which was for me at least, I could not tell what she was doing at first. At first I thought she was making pancakes, but we do find out she is actually making paper mache, and the glue. When she poured the stuff in, it kind of looked like flour, and then she put the liquid on it. It had a pancake vibe to me, but no, it was not. It was our, I guess, main character, Kristen, who was kind of one of the main characters, Kristen, who was making a paper mache item. We don't know what it is quite yet. That's a little bit of a reveal.
Spoilers, it's a house.
It's a house. It is the Elm Street house of the first two movies.
It is the house.
Yeah, Nancy's and Jesse's house. Even though this movie likes to pretend like Jesse doesn't exist, and I am not okay with that. Nightmare on Elm Street 2 erasure. It is not cool. But yeah, so after she's making this unknown at this time paper mache item, she takes a spoonful of instant coffee. She eats it,
Dude,
and then
just
Maxwell
eats
House
it.
instant coffee.
yeah, and then immediately takes
yum.
a chaser of Diet Coke to keep herself awake, which shows that we are already starting in a different vibe. You can tell this character already knows what's going on and is dealing with this immediately, which is nice as us, the audience, not having to have the character figuring out what's happening to them. Really, she's just immediately
Like in the last
into
two
it.
movies.
Yeah. It's the third movie. You know what's going on. Let's just get right into it. She is trying to stay awake, and her mom shows up, and she's a terrible mother.
Yeah.
She is probably the worst horror movie parent we've seen, at least. She is pretty bad. To be fair, there's only been really 4 or 5 other parents to really deal with, to compare it to, because Friday the 13th had no parents. But she is pretty bad. She only cares about her harmonica visit she has, which is pretty much one of the few times that, harmonica playing / peek if you're a first time listener, that's what we call sex. Don't tell anyone.
Well,
You're just gonna tell him like that?
He said the S word. I'm telling.
Oh, you're right. Susan's gonna be mad at us. But yeah. So she's telling her to just go to sleep, and she doesn't seem. Chris is trying to tell her, but I'm having these nightmares, and her mom just doesn't seem to care because her boy. He wants her to come back downstairs, or
Where's the bourbon?
Where's the bourbon?
Yeah.
Which is a line that will come back later.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And we learned so much about the mom just from this entrance.
Yeah.
She's there for just a few seconds, but the fur and the hair tells us so
that's
much about because when we open up on the main character, she's just it's suburban American girl. Then the mom is that's a particular. We know this mom already.
Yeah.
And she's not likable.
Yeah.
No.
Fun fact about that mom: her actress is the mother of the emo girl in Friday the 13th Part 5. I believe her name was Violet. She's the emo punk girl with she dies dancing.
Oh.
Just random fun fact.
From Friday the 13th.
Yeah, for Friday the 13th.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Part
Come
5.
on.
The one of the worst ones.
Yeah.
There's the dancing girl. This girl is this lady is the mother of that actress. Just fun fact.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Small world.
Yeah. And now we are. This is the point where we reveal that what Kristen was making, and she was making Nancy's house, as we've already said, and she's going into her dream, and what's that? She's in her dream waking up in front of the house, but it's all decrepit now, and there's kids.
A whole bunch of kids.
Yeah, just kind of playing and singing the little song in front of it. A very happy scene, honestly. A nice little neighborhood to be in.
Very merry moment. Yeah.
Right up until you take into consideration the context of.
Oh yeah. No, it's
house.
definitely really creepy. Actually, not fun. Because you don't really want to see little kids all dressed in white singing a melodic tune in the middle of the night. Not typically what you want from society. I mean, at least
For
not
movie
one.
Context, you know you're in for a bad time.
And Kristen actually talks to one of the little girls on the, I believe she's on a tricycle, and they have a little conversation before she runs off, and Kristen follows her into the house, into the basement of the house.
Ooh.
Yeah, sure.
Basement.
You caught me off guard for that.
I thought it was weird that the basement door wasn't just like a normal wooden basement door, but it was like a boiler room
dungeon
door.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like full metal, which was probably intentional.
Probably.
But also, like, when she went down into the basement, it was still just a normal basement filled with, like, family stuff that you would throw in a basement. And
but
also
I would say,
the girl on the
unlike
tricycle.
the last two movies, even though this is supposed to be the same house, not true to the house. It did not look like the basement in the first two movies were like the same basement. This basement was slightly different. Does that matter? No, I just thought it was a random little fact I thought of as we're talking about this basement.
It might. It might. I mean,
Basement
the fact about the dimensions of the basement might not matter, but this is a house that like she's creating to some degree in her dream.
That is true.
And so the presence of like this really reinforced door, like the basement is. To me, it suggested like, oh, is this meant to suggest like the kids are kept down here like a prison? That wasn't the case, but it's kind of open ended. I don't know, or they could have just set it to redesign the basement.
Yeah.
Who knows? It may or may not have symbolic value.
Well, the little girl actually lets us know something, though, right? Here, she has this little line where she lets us know that we were wrong. This is not Nancy or Jesse's house. This is Freddy's house and Freddy's home. But yeah, so then the little girl, she grabs the little girl and starts running with her. And she's being chased by Freddy. And she runs into a very similar scene from the first movie of, which is a very realistic dream thing that we've all probably dealt with some extent of that. You feel like you can't move in your dream feeling. And we had this, like, bloody, almost like it's reddish, this, like, tar that she's stuck in. She's,
like tarry, yeah.
But it's definitely, I feel like there's supposed to be little bits of your brain that goes, maybe blood, just because it's...
Maybe gore.
Yeah, gore, like something. But it definitely is acting more like tar than blood. And she's not able to move. And Freddy gets real close, but right before he gets there, she is able to move. And she goes on into the next room, where there's just a bunch of hanging bodies, which I believe are all dressed like past dead victims that we've seen.
Yeah.
That we've seen?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe you see, like Chris pointed out, and I think when I watched some videos on it, it did look like it might have been Johnny Depp's character's outfit is on one of the bodies. Maybe that was intentional, maybe it wasn't. Who knows? Maybe that was just an 80s outfit they put on this body. There's a big chance of that. But then the little doll tells her, the little girl tells her that she is she's hurting her.
And she does look like a doll while she's bouncing around in Kristen's arms.
She does.
Dude, yeah, it's so evident that she's a doll the minute it cuts away from her face. Like the hair is so doll hair.
Yeah. But she's now no longer a doll anymore, though, because she's a little skeleton girl, which was supposed to be a much creepier like fake girl, but they ended up deciding it was too creepy and cut it and just put this little skeleton. Like it was like the person who created it said that he when he asked like what they were wanted for, the word he was told was Auschwitz, and this little emaciated looking girl is. There is pictures out there online, and I think they probably made the right choice. It's a little too, like, unsettling. But yeah, so...
Chris is looking it up.
I think Chris is looking it up. Maybe Chris, if you find it, share it in the chat so Isaiah can see it. But I'm going to move on as we.
Yeah.
We
got a lot
cut,
to cover.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry. And then we cut to. Nope, we don't. We have her, Kristen. She wakes up. Is what happens here, or at least she thinks so, as she heads into the bathroom. But oh wait, she's not asleep because that's Freddy in the mirror, and now he's like turning into the faucets in like this really cool way, and like grabs her wrist, and then her mom comes in and actually wakes her up, but her wrist is all cut, and she's holding a razor blade in her hand, so it really looks like she's trying to commit a thing that we can't say on YouTube.
Commit game end.
Yeah. She's trying to end her own self. Game over. Well, that's the Saw franchise. Wrong franchise. But where was I? Yeah. So then we cut to we meet Dr. Gordon, who is talking to a bunch of the the psych patients, as well as this like orderly. Max is an orderly, right? Maybe
orderly nurse.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
Nurse,
we're kind of introduced to some of the characters. None of these the introductions here, like we don't learn any other names except for Max's in this scene, but we do have a couple interactions with some of them. Like I believe Jennifer, he like asks about her, like if she, like he looks at her like one of her like her scar of like having a cigarette burn on her, which there's not a lot of that little scene that matters that much. But then we meet Dr. Sims. Which is the other doctor there, and they go to they have a little conversation about talking about how there's this new hotshot coming in, and they don't trust her. That's a big deal when we find her out, though. Spoiler: hotshot's kind of a big deal.
I remember seeing the male doctor and thinking like he looks just like that psychologist Neil from the Santa Claus. It'd be cool if his name was Neil, and it is. So that's what I liked about this movie.
See, I saw him and thought, it's Bill Maher.
Yeah, that's what I thought as soon as I saw him. I was like, oh, they got Bill Maher for this movie. That's crazy.
He does look, y'all are right.
It is. We're not the only people who've noticed that. There's a lot of the internet who's talked about how he looks like Bill Maher, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, he does. Why? I mean, not why, because that's his genetics. That's why. So now they get word that they need to go to one of the I don't think of the word. It's like one of the rooms where they're like trying to administer some sedative to Kristen, who is freaking out because she does not want to go to sleep.
Obviously. Yeah, understandably so.
Yeah. But yeah, she's not wanting to be sedated, and she starts kind of real awkwardly so in the middle of the rhyme starts humming rhyming, doing the little, I think she starts at like 5, 6, grab your crucifix. She forgets 1, 2, and 3, 4, straight to 5, 6. She gets through 8, she gets through 7 and 8, but then before she's able to finish 9 and 10, it's Nancy. She walks in the room, and she finishes it for her. Because Nancy is that hot shot, intern we find out in one random line later, which really makes the dynamic between her and the doctor really creepy. Just want to throw that out here right now and just get it out of the way. There is almost a love story between them, and it's never like fully like pushed hard, but it's enough that it's awkward, especially when you think about the fact that she's supposed to be an intern, which implies that she's like still in college and he looks like he's 40.
I think he does not look young.
Dude, yeah. And I think they say it was 6 years out of movie number 1.
Okay, that would make her at most like 22. So
I guess it could be 6 years after movie number 2. I can't remember. I remember yeah. She's of college age, undergraduate age.
Yeah. So it's a creepy dynamic, especially because if you even ignore the age gap, if you want to say, oh, they're both adults, which is fair. There's also the fact that when this kind of relationship kind of starts, she's his intern. It seems like there is an authority issue there. That it's also just want to get that out of the way. It's creepy. It really doesn't affect the movie that much. The movie's still a really fun movie, but I just want to get that out of the way real quick. It's a creepy relationship. But yeah, she's here, Nancy's, and she starts a little conversation with Dr. Neil. This is where we find his name is Neil. I wrote Dr. Gordon the rest of the time. Gordon, not Gordman. Dr. Gordon the rest of the time. But officially his name is Neil Gordon. Just throwing it out there for people who want to know full names. Because there are characters who refer to him as Neil throughout the movie. I don't, though, because whenever a name is given...
respectful.
Whenever a name is given to me in a movie, that's what imprints on me initially. He was introduced as Dr. Gordon, so for the rest of the movie, he was Dr. Gordon for me. Like, Nancy's dad, he's Nancy's dad. I understand his name is, like, something Thompson. John Thompson or something? Dan Thompson. Something like that. Something Thompson. Officer Thompson. But to me, he's just Nancy's dad. And when my notes, he is referred to as Nancy's dad, because spoiler alert, he's also in this movie. But yeah, so Dr. Gordon has a little conversation with Nancy, and then he kind of passes her off to Max, so Max can give her the rest of the tour. And Max gives... Oh, sorry, no. Sorry. They have this little conversation. She drops her purse, and we find out that she has this medication that, we don't know what it is yet. We find out later. It's an anti-dream, like a dream present. Yeah, which I don't think is real. But, it's a fun concept for this world.
Yeah.
But then
and Doctor... What were you going to say, Chris?
Oh, I don't think you was. I think I was starting to say something. But if you have something to say, I talk most of the time, so please take over.
It's not major, but it did occur to me when I was watching the movie that good old Dr. Neil is being very chivalrous and helping her. And then when he picks up this medicine bottle, he really stops to study it pretty conspicuously. Like he reads it for a good 20 secones.
Well, yeah, because he's got the hots for this girl, and now he finds out she's on some sort of medication. She must be crazy.
He's like, I gotta find out what this is.
Are you one of the loons? I can't talk to a loon. But you know who might also be loony? Dr. Gordon, because he sees a random nun in the middle of a walkway here. But oh wait, she's gone. She's also a really lame character as we get into more of it here. We'll explain it when we get more of those details, but I am not a fan of...
It's a really cool plot twist.
I'm not a fan of her subplot.
kind of a Martha. Yeah. Batman versus Superman Martha type.
Where were we? So yeah, sorry. Now Max, he starts he gives Nancy this tour, and we get introduced to a few of the patients. We get introduced to Philip, and we find out that he likes puppets. He makes puppets, that's his thing. We also get introduced to Kincaid, who isn't my favorite character, but is definitely the internet's favorite character in this movie, and I can definitely see why. He's got a lot of sassiness in the best way possible.
Yeah.
He is awesome.
He is awesome.
But yeah, we get introduced to him. We also find out that he gets put in the quiet room a lot, which is where they put the people who aren't cooperating. Fun fact about him, he actually the way he got cast was he went to an audition, and they were really late for the audition. So when they got there and they said, just do whatever you want, he just started yelling at them and cursing them out, and that got him the role. Just a little fun fact about him, and I was like, that's awesome.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. Then we get introduced to Joey, who has, in this scene, I think only, has this little
teardrop under his eye?
Tattoo-esque thing, implying that he's killed someone or had a friend die in a gang. Just weird. But it's also
and that's
only
the
in
only
this
time
scene.
it's there.
Yeah, it's only in this scene. And he helps Marcy, who is a nurse, pick up some towels. That's that scene. Kind of, but you can tell that he's, kind of maybe into this Marcy girl. This full-grown woman nurse. Not a girl. You get my point. But yeah, they were definitely hinting at that it might be important that, he's into her. Then we have the moment where it really fully seals that Kristen's mom is the worst character in this whole franchise. That's right. Worse than possible child predator Freddy Krueger, in my opinion. That's right. It is Kristen's mom, who is just so cooperative in trying to have this. Nancy's trying to be helpful and be like, "Hey, has she had nightmares before?" And she's like, "I don't care." It's like, okay, gosh, you're supposed to be her mom. Show any bit of care. It's what? Fine, whatever. Just I really hated her, but thankfully this is pretty much the last time we see her. But yeah, sure. So actually, it is the last time we truly see her. And then we have Nancy, who finds the model of her own house in Kristen's room. Ooh, creepy. Then we have we cut to Kristen, who is drawing in her bed as she falls asleep. She's drawing a picture of Nancy's house because she's obsessed with Nancy's house. Because which is honestly a little weird. I feel like if I was having nightmares of this horrible place, I wouldn't feel the need to make multiple art projects of this horrible nightmare I have.
And stare at it as you go to sleep.
Yeah, it seems a little weird.
I keep having these terrible nightmares. Like you recreated the source of your horror. It's right in front of you, right there.
Always there, all the time, just like what you want.
Some of those too is that like, I mean, this was a little bit fresher when this movie was made, so it might just be because so many movies have been made since then that by now I'm very, very tired of creepy charcoal drawings and scary movies. And at least this wasn't a kid's creepy charcoal drawing. That's even more of a crutch. But like Bird Box is the most recent offender, but they're just everywhere. Like, oh, the creepy drawing, creepy black and white drawing, you know. And so I thought, oh, she's making it out of paper mache. That's new. And then she's got this drawing, and that ruined it for me. Ruined the paper mache.
I also want to point out here, because we didn't mention it when she first appeared, Kristen is played by Patricia Arquette, this was her first ever acting role, and she's gone on to do she had a pretty successful career, as well as Max, who is Lawrence Fishburne.
Hey, or as he's known in this movie,
Larry
Fishburne. Larry.
Young Larry Fishburne, and a young Patricia Arquette, who is, a very successful actor on her own right, but also a part of a huge acting family with her brother David Arquette, and she has a sister. Yeah, she also has a sister who's also been in a lot of things. Who I can't remember her name off the top of my head. My bad. I'm sorry.
Other Arquette. I said other Arquette.
Yeah, other Arquette. But yeah, so Kristen, she falls asleep, and she wakes up in the same bed, but she sees a trike roll in on its own, and its tracks that it's leaving are bloody, and then it just starts melting. And now Kristen is obviously freaking out about that, so she gets up out of bed to leave the room, and she walks through the door, and now she's in Nancy's house. Which I think I give the series credit for this in the first movie, but I really love that aspect of this, where you'll just go through a door and be in a completely different place. Because it is such a dream thing that I can remember in my own dreams of being like, oh, I'm in a new area and I don't know why. Okay, cool.
You just roll with it. Yeah.
It's all right, this is where the dream is now. Got it. But yeah,
I feel like all the transitions that happen, well, at least thus far, happen pretty smoothly too.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
So yeah, she is at Nancy's house. She walks into the dining room area, and she sees this roasted pig that is literally rotting. Fun fact, legitimately rotting. This isn't a prop.
It was a real roasted pig.
Yeah, it was a real roasted pig that they left out and let rot because they realized an animatronic pig was going to cost too much. So they have under this real rotting pig someone move its head because there's a little jump scare here, and that's just. Mm-hmm. Fun fact that they went, oh, that's going to cost too much, so let's just use a real rotting pig carcass. And I thought, that's awesome.
And hire a pig puppeteer.
Yeah. And there's also a really loud fly in this scene. I guess to let us know that it's rotting, but it was a little too much.
Really loud, really, not that great sounding fly effects.
Yeah.
It might be a blender in another room. That kind of a fly sound.
Somebody just squeezing a whoopee cushion.
Yeah.
And then they just repeated that sound for the next, minute and a half.
It's not that. It's maybe 20 seconds. But
eternity.
That's fair. Now, in dream fashion again, she is in a completely different room now. And there's this she's on this room with this this carpet. A room that I don't believe was ever shown in either of the two movies. It is a new room that's supposed to be in this house. And the carpet starts moving, and then the walls start breaking all around her, and then a giant worm Freddy pops out of the ground and eats her. I mean, not fully, but he grabs her and starts to eat her. And she starts screaming for Nancy, and then we cut to Nancy, who is wakes up hearing that somehow, and then she calls for her again, and she gets pulled down through her chair into the dream, because that's the central point of this plot is Kristen, she has this power to pull people into her dreams, which is pretty crazy. And I mean,
she's a dream warrior, Austin.
We're not there yet. It's not time for the classic original song by Dawkins called Dream Warriors. That doesn't play till the credits. The words Dream Warriors doesn't get played till the credits, Chris.
Yeah. So
That's
sad.
the time to discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we can discuss it when she talks about them all having powers. We'll get to that scene.
Oh, okay.
We'll get to that. We're
When
not
we
there
get to the
yet.
credits.
Yeah.
Acrobatics.
We're not there yet. Stop it. We gotta get through the movie in order. Yeah, so Nancy's now in the dream, and she grabs a piece of a broken mirror she came through in, and she stabs Freddy Worm in the eye, and he lets go of her, and he, turns into a completely different puppet, because there's actually like 4 or 5 different really cool Freddy puppets all in this one scene to make it work. Though they actually had to recolor, because as you can tell in this scene, Freddy's not the normal color of Freddy. He's kind of more of like a bluish green, because he looked a little too phallic when they first made the puppet, and they're like, ooh, this isn't gonna work. So they
Pee-pee Freddy.
Yeah, we didn't want a little giant pee-pee Freddy, so we turned him into weird gooey worm Freddy, which I think definitely works better. Better
That's
than
fair.
giant. You think giant penis Freddy would have been better?
Easily.
It would have fit
sounds like a great
Freddy's
band.
theme.
I think giant worm Freddy works. It's fun. It's weird. But yeah, he looks at Nancy and goes, "You," and then Nancy also realizes that that's Freddy at that point, and she grabs Kristen, and they run out of the room, close the door, and she tells Kristen to get him out of there. And Kristen gets him out of there right before Freddy crashes through the door. But Nancy did get a little cut on her, so this shows once again that what happens in the dreams is real.
If you die in the game, you die in real life.
Yes.
Yeah. Now it's the next morning, and Kristen tells Nancy how she's had this power for a long time, and how she used to pull her dad into her dreams as a kid before he left.
Yeah. Because her mother is an insufferable piece of
Her
garbage.
mom is absolutely awful, and I can't blame her whatsoever for that. But yeah, where were we? I lost my place. I'm also killing time because Isaiah
Kristen.
walked away. Oh, and he's back.
I had to stir my chili. I'm
That's
sorry.
fair. Oh, chili again.
Classic
It's got
Isaiah
how
makes
Friday the
chili.
13th part 5 or 6. I don't remember which one it was.
Oh, I forgot. I've done this before.
Yeah, but yeah, Nancy confirms that. Wait, what? I wrote Nancy confirms that Freddy. I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
It is Freddy.
He
I
says
guess.
that Freddy.
She goes, that Freddy, and I'm like, ah, yes, that Freddy, the classic Nancy.
That Freddy.
I
That.
thought that didn't happen till their first.
I
little
think
group
she
therapy.
confirms this to just Kristen in her room, like in that discussion in her office.
Yeah.
Because now we go into a little, slightly expositional, but fun. Because that's another thing I want to praise this movie for is, unlike most of the horror movies we've watched so far, which is kind of a thing in slasher movies, the characters in this movie are just great. Like, every character is well written and well acted, and it's fun to be with them. There's none.
That is true.
It's like so many of these movies. It's like you'll have maybe 1 or 2 characters. Hopefully, the final girl will be interesting. This movie, you're rooting for all of these characters. They all have a lot of personality. So even though this scene is kind of expositional, this group therapy scene we have here, it's a fun one because all the characters are cool. First character we meet in this group therapy as they go around introducing themselves is Will, who is in a wheelchair. And he says it was by an accident, but Taryn points out that it was not an accident. It was because he
jumped.
Yeah, he jumped. And then I believe, I don't remember what the line exactly was, but I believe at this point Kincaid has a snarky line back at her, because that's Kincaid. He's very snarky, but he is very funny. I didn't write down a lot of his funny lines, but he is a very good character. I really do. I want to say I love pretty much every character. Every character is great, except for the ones that are supposed to be bad. Oh, and Amanda Kruger. I don't like her because I don't like the concept of what they're doing with the story there. But that's a whole different reason. The actress is fine.
We're not there
She
yet.
plays a fine creepy nun.
Oh, you spoiled it.
All I said was she was creepy nun. Oh, Chris.
You also should see it was Amanda Kruger.
Oh, that's true. Oh, you're right. My bad. Spoiler. It's almost like if you're watching this, you probably have already seen the movie, or you expect us to spoil it because we've just spoiled the first 20 minutes of the movie beat for beat. So.
Yeah, it's fair.
But yeah, so then we get introduced to Jennifer, who she wants to be an actor. She was the character we saw earlier, who was, talking about the cigarettes. Then we have Taryn, who was the girl who we have her introduced. She was the girl who interrupted Will and talked about him, why he really did it. And then, we also, I believe we find out someone calls her a drug addict. This is kind of where we find out that she has an addiction past. I believe she also says, like, how she's here because she'd rather be here than be in juvie is her reason for being here. Then we have Philip, and pretty much the whole group, but specifically Philip, talks about how he thinks this whole group psychosis thing is just, it doesn't make sense. How is it possible that they'd all have these dreams about this same person before they showed up? How is...
Yeah, they have a conversation, or like the main doctor lady's trying to get them all to talk, and Philip's kind of, he's done the same song and dance a few times already, and he's tired of it. He's like, all right, so before we, put out maximum effort for minimal progress, why don't you explain to me how talking about our group hysteria is going to help us?
Yeah. There's also a really funny line here where she talks about how they that it's just I don't remember what the first, like, it's their guilt and their, like, sexual immorality, and then Kincaid talks about how his his penis.
Right, so now my penis is killing me.
He doesn't say penis, but we're a PG channel. Until we might not be, because there's a certain line later in this movie that I have that is, like, one of the most iconic quotes from the franchise, and I might have to curse just to say the quote. I'm sorry. Sorry, Susan, ahead of time. I don't know if Isaiah understands the Susan joke, but it is a running joke
I don't
on our
have
channel.
a clue.
Susan is the CEO of YouTube. So, and, YouTube has their rules about, they don't like cursing. But they also don't like children's
we're
content.
past the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're good now. So we could curse, but we choose not to curse on the channel because of our morality. I don't know. We just do. We're weird. But I probably will curse once later because I kind of feel like I have to give that iconic Freddy line that will come up in a little while. But let's get back to...
I hope it's not the one you're thinking of. The one I'm thinking of. I hope you're not thinking of the one I'm thinking of.
It probably is because we'll find out.
Okay. Yeah.
Where were we? So now we cut to a scene where Joey, Will, and Taryn are playing knockoff D&D.
Wizard Master.
Yeah, Wizard Master.
Yeah.
Having a fun little scene. It's a fun little scene. Once again, like, nothing really important happens in the scene, but it's just... these characters are really likable. I'm cool with watching them play D&D for, like, a minute or two. It's like... any other movie, if think about it, think back to, like, Friday the 13th, when they played, their strip Monopoly. That scene dragged long because the characters were so unlikable.
Dude,
these characters are great.
Did we mention anything about Joey being, like, a mute at all?
We forgot to mention that.
We didn't.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joey doesn't talk.
Yeah, because, they're all playing D&D, and Joey's, not talking because he can't.
Yeah.
He's just kind of chilling. He's a spectator.
Yeah.
I mean, he's playing, but...
Yeah. Maybe his character's mute too, okay?
I mean, it totally could be.
Yeah. But yeah, so then Taryn leaves, and they're told to go to bed, and before they go to bed, we find out that Joey and Will, they sleep in shifts because they know what's going on. Like we said earlier, the characters of this movie, they know what's going on. They don't want to deal with this, so they sleep in shifts to make sure nothing happens to them in the night. Then we cut to our first scene of the inappropriate relationship I mentioned earlier of Dr. Gordon and Nancy, who were just at a Thai restaurant talking about how the Thai food's good, and
well, that's the only Thai food in Springwood.
That's the only Thai food in Springwood. And he asked if she'd been there, and she goes, I don't know if I have. I think when it first came here, I was still in school. I'm just saying, they straight up say in the scene, she's too young for this scene. But yeah, she tells him, they have this, they have a little bit of a, once again, slightly expositional scene, but the closing point that matters is she wants to get all the kids on that anti-dream medication that she is on.
Hypnosil.
Yeah, Hypnosil. But Dr. Gordon says that, that's a, bad idea, because you don't want to give all these kids on, like, suicide watch this experimental narcotic. Probably not the best idea. And you know what? That is, fair.
Valid reason.
Very valid reason. Especially because, according to him, why would they at this point? He doesn't know everything yet, so...
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Now things have started to ramp up.
Yeah. Now we cut to Philip, who is he's having a nightmare, and we get this really dope like claymation stop motion thing of Freddy, like a Freddy turning into a puppet. Isaiah apparently doesn't like the scene. He made a face when I said it was dope. So
okay, I can't tell if I like it. I remember watching and thinking like claymation, that's cool. Then I think, is it really? But I didn't like the growing. The claymation was cooler than
that. No, I'll give you the transition from the claymation into not claymation is horrible, but the claymation is awesome, and what he does after growing is also awesome. So I'm okay with that transition scene being that like 2-second transition being pretty trash. Because
it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, after he grows really awkwardly with just like resizing a JPEG.
And drag.
Yep, they just drag the corners.
Freddy's big now. And then he pokes, is what it looks like, a whole bunch of really long slices in Philip's arms and legs.
Yeah.
And then pulls his like veins and tendons
out. Like it's so graphic.
Like, marionettes him down the hallway
into a marionette, which I will say I think this movie does a really good job of which is something I think Freddy does more so later. One, this is I think the first movie that really plays on the dark comedy element compared to later movies where it just becomes like outright cheese. But this movie is like a really well done dark comedy, as well as just all the kills feel, for the most part, make sense to the character. Like he's playing off, which makes sense with like a character that's supposed to play off of their fears. He really feels like he's attacking what they would be afraid of. Like we look back to like especially like the first movie, which has some awesome moments. Are any of those kills really what those characters seem like they would be afraid of specifically? Why is Johnny Depp afraid of getting pulled into his bed? Like it's just a really cool scene, sure, but this scene, like he turns the puppet guy into a puppet, and we'll get to some more later. He kills them in ways that make sense for them, and I think it's really cool.
That is a good point. It's like the punishments in like Dante's Inferno, like the schismatics get chopped in half and stuff like that. Yeah, contrapasso.
But yeah,
punishment fits the crime, that kind of deal.
So he has Puppet Phil, and he walks him through the building, takes him up to the clock tower. But as he passes one of the rooms, no, he doesn't. No, it does not when he passes the rooms. It's once he's at the clock tower, Joey looks up and sees him, and there's this really awesome scene of Joey, like, even though he's a mute, like, being a total, like, he's, like, so awesome and just, like,
springs into action.
Like, he jumps up, pulls Will, who is, paraplegic and can't walk, pulls him over to the window so he can see, then runs, gets the receptionist nurse, gets her attention, but she's not really fully understanding because he's not able to communicate what's going on, so he grabs the tray and just bangs it across every door to make sure everyone's awake. Like, it's a really epic scene, like showing how cool Joey is, even though like you could very easily have made him kind of a timid, lame character, but they made him able to spring into action and, I mean, we find out not save the day, but really tried his darndest to save the day here.
Yeah.
So everyone is there now looking out this window as we watch. I mean, they don't see it, but we see Freddy cut the strings, in quotes, killing Philip, dropping him to his death. But yeah, so next day at group therapy, everyone but the doctors really kind of just won't believe the kids about Freddy. Even though they're all like, this is obviously Freddy, he didn't commit suicide. And there's honestly a kind of very, like, I feel like, I mean, one, yes, it makes sense somewhat for the character, but it just, not really. That's Dr. Gordon has a really, like, dismissive attitude on the S word about killing yourself. That might even make the YouTube algorithm mad. But like, it's a very like dismissive, "You're a failure, you quit" message, which is not the message you want to send to a bunch of kids who are on suicide watch. I just said it. Oops. Sorry.
Well, he's like, what a loser. He committed suicide.
Yeah. He's a quitter.
What a moron.
Yeah. Like, what is... That's such a horrible, like, you're trying to save these kids. You don't yell at them that, because that's gonna, like, that's, oh, it's, like, one, the kid didn't actually kill himself, so it is a little moot, but it's the principle of he thinks this is what's happening here, and it's just like, I'll show these kids the right answer to what that kid did. Oh, gosh. Yeah. But yeah, so after that, Kincaid starts just freaking out, and he gets taken off to the quiet room. Yes. Then Dr. Gordon, they have this argument with Dr. Gordon, I forgot her name. Other doctor.
He's not here as much.
Dr. Antagonist.
Sims.
Dr. Antagonist.
Dr. Sims and Nancy a little bit, but yeah, she's like trying to be like, hey, this is Dr. Sims is not being very receptive of what's going on, and because Nancy's trying to say, hey, you can't give that kid a sedative. That'll be horrible for him. Because, you can't let him dream right now. And eventually Dr. Gordon, is like, all right, you know what? We got to get all these kids on Hypnosil. And Dr.
Right off the bat.
Yeah, Dr. Sims is having... It's kind of... he's blinded by his, his lust for her.
Love for Nancy.
Yeah. Because he is like, this intern is really into me. I have to take advantage of this. But yeah, so he goes with the plan, but Dr. Sims is really not on board, which, once again, like, yes, Dr. Sims is the antagonist, but also... And, like, this is something the actress said. Doctor. The actress said who played it, like, she never saw herself as the villain because she's reacting right. Like, that's how you should react. Like, you react with, no, these kids are, like, all, for lack of a better term, crazy. We need to help sedate this because if not, they're going to hurt themselves. Like, it. But she eventually, she goes, fine, but it's on your, basically, like, the blood is on your hands. I wash, she goes full, Pontius Pilate. She washes her hands of it. And she, lets him do what she needs to do. That was a very niche Christian reference that I don't think most people are going to get who come for our horror movie podcast.
Pontius Pilate's pretty famous.
I mean, yes.
Yeah, like Pontius Pilate.
But I feel like
well-known
the
enough.
washing his hands of it, like, bit that you both totally understood, I don't think most people will who are tuning into the horror movie podcast. I could be wrong. But where was I? Kincaid, he is singing a song about not dreaming in the quiet room. It's not the same,
No.
It's not the Freddy song. It's just a new song.
Yeah, not the jump rope.
Yeah, it's his own song about sleeping, not sleeping. It's he's a very original boy. Kincaid is. But yeah, now we cut to Max, and he's catching Jennifer, and she's watching TV. But he agrees to just let her. She explains like, hey, I need to. I don't want to sleep after everything that happened. And he's like, all right, fine, but pretend like I didn't see you. And he leaves her.
And she notes like that there's kind of a deadline here, which kind of ups the pressure. She's just one more night.
Yeah.
And we learned that we learned earlier that they can get the Hypnosil, but it's going to take some time.
That's true. Yeah.
Making this night all the more momentous, just one more night, and it ends up being, of course, fateful for her.
Her last night.
But then before we get to what happens to Jennifer, well, we cut to some random, like, creepy orderly. This is a really throwaway scene, but he's just creepy for the sake of being creepy. We have this new creepy orderly who, like, shows up and, like, tries to, get Taryn to take drugs / maybe do something with him to get said drugs. Like, it's just a really creepy scene, and there's really never a payoff to it. This character is in this one scene and then never seen again.
Well, there's not a payoff to him.
I mean, there's a payoff to her and her, like, past with drugs.
Yeah, and then she's turned away from it.
But they already, like, hinted at her being on drugs. And I feel like there was an easier way to point out her being on drugs than throwing in this random creep ball character. It just felt really weird, out of place, and it's literally for this one scene and then he's gone.
In fairness, I think he might be in the earlier scene with, like, Joey and the other nurse. I think he might be the same orderly who, like...
He's hitting on her, too,
okay.
Yeah, hits on her as well and sweeps her away from Joey. Poor Joey, R.I.P.
Well, yeah.
He's not dead.
He's got the same Brooklyn accent.
You're probably right.
Accent.
I didn't remember him being in that scene, but you're probably right.
Yeah, he only serves to be creepy guy.
I don't like him. But see, even that scene, he's not creepy. There's nothing wrong with him hitting on another adult. It's really creepy that he's hitting on this 17-year-old kid. It's creepy.
It characterizes her more than him.
Yeah.
I think to a useful degree.
All right. We'll agree to disagree and move on. But where were we?
We won't.
Okay, we're gonna harp on this. This is the whole podcast now. We cut back to Jennifer, who has found a cigarette and like a butt of a cigarette basically, and she lights it, and she's using that to keep herself awake by burning herself with it, which is was alluded to earlier, but now we know exactly why she does it. She does it to try to keep herself awake.
She does not do a very good job of this, and shortly after falls asleep.
Yeah, she falls asleep because the TV show she's watching, which I don't remember the name of the guy. It's like it was an actual like late night guy, and the person in the scene's also another actual somewhat celebrity. I don't remember her name.
Dude, Zsa Zsa Gabor. Yeah.
Yes. That's why we have Isaiah here. He knows. He is the Zsa Zsa Gabor expert, and that's why.
Yes.
But yeah, so but then the talk show host turns into Freddy and kills Zsa Zsa Gabor.
After a really spiteful remark.
Yeah. Who cares?
Who gives a yeah?
I want to say I don't know if it was I watched a documentary about the movie. I don't know if it was the actor, like the actual like host who I think was playing himself, or it was the writer. I can't remember which one. They put Zsa Zsa Gabor in there because he wanted to pick someone that he thought had like no merit and wanted it to be so like who would I want to see get killed? And it was so.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty terrible. I don't remember who it was, but someone said that. Where were we? But yeah, she falls asleep and she looks over at the TV and it starts glitching out after that. So she walks over there. But then Freddy pops out of the TV and he, pulls her up and he tells her, where was it? This is her big break on TV and welcome to prime time, bitch. He says it much more, enthusiastically than I whispered there. And that is one of the most iconic lines in the whole franchise. Isaiah might not like it, but that is, I think, peak Freddy. And like, I don't personally care specifically for it, but it's one of the first times he really gets quippy with it, which becomes like a character trait going forward.
It's totally sucked all the fear out of this scene. I just started laughing at it. Like,
see, I think that's the point. At this point going forward, Freddy isn't supposed to fully be scary. That's
a valid point.
He's supposed to be this dark comedy character of, haha, quippy one-liner, you're here to watch Freddy, especially going forward, because from what I understand, this might be the last movie where we have such good, compelling characters. This movie, we still care about all the other characters, but he's supposed to become that, slasher kind of character where you just show up to watch him. But he's, I don't know, I don't love this line, but this is definitely in like every video. I watched like 4 or 5 videos on this movie today, and every movie put over this line is the line, like the Freddy line.
This is the line? Oh
this is the Freddy line. So, and I get it, but also I don't think it, like I'm definitely not as loving of the line as I feel like the consensus is, but I also don't hate it like Isaiah does. I just thought I was like, it's okay. Yeah, that's a quippy line. All right. I just Freddy doing his
You're
quip.
kind of swaying me. I mean, you're kind of swaying me, but I just remember the effect it had on the moment was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Just took you out of it.
Like the scene was, I was into the scene, it took me out of it. And
that's fair.
It was just immediately not scared, but I don't know. Maybe I'll come around.
Now we have Max, who comes in and he finds Jennifer's head in the TV. This is something Chris pointed out. Later they talk about this being one of the self-kills. How did anyone think this was a self-kill? Who jumps a foot into the air and spikes their head into a TV to kill themselves?
Dude.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense to me at all, and it is, I think, my biggest problem with this movie.
Yeah, no, it is definitely a little plot hole. There's no real explanation for it. They just move on. But yeah, it is
yeah.
This is, I guess, believed to be, her killing herself somehow. But now we go to a funeral, and the nun from earlier, who introduces herself to Dr. Gordon as Mary Helena, she talks to him for a little bit. She tells him, about how whoever is doing this must be laid to rest. Which is
in sacred ground.
Did she say that? I don't think she said that here yet. I believe she says that in the big late scene later, where I really start hating her character. But yeah. Now we cut... Oh, wait, sorry. No, sorry. Then we cut to. Wait,
Somewhere.
the kids. Help the kids. Oh, so she disappears when Nancy shows up. Like Nancy walks up and he goes like, she asks like, "Oh, what are you doing over here?" And he looks around and she's gone. Because she's a ghost. Spoilers. She's a ghost. Oh, ghost.
Oh, whoa.
And then we just cut to them having the nice candlelit dinner in Nancy's house. Okay.
Hey.
And they have a little discussion here, and Nancy, he's really wanting to like help these kids. He doesn't know what to do, and I think he kind of tells her a little bit about like that conversation he had with the nun, and she kind of she tells him like, "Hey, do you want to know the whole thing? Like, you gonna trust me and believe me?" And
the
he
whole
goes,
thing, nothing but the thing,
Yeah.
so help you God.
"Yeah, keeping it, straight talk in this room is what she should have said in that scene. That would have been funny."
That's right. Yeah.
It would have been funny if she brought.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing. She brings that's the line that's brought up every time they're in the group therapy scene. She brings that up when they have their last group therapy scene. That's not really group therapy. When she just opened, which felt really out of place and didn't make any sense in that scene. It would have been really funny in this scene if she was like straight talk in this room. You
Straight
can
talk,
listen. Which is also why Jesse is not in this room, because he could not be there for the straight talk in the room.
Yeah. This movie's very anti the second movie.
Yeah, the last movie was the gay movie. This is the really Catholic movie, so they couldn't have him back.
The really Catholic movie.
The really Catholic movie, yeah. There is a nun.
There is a lot. We haven't got to it
There's
yet,
a
but there
nun.
will be a lot of Catholicism a little bit later. I guess we've had the nun, so I guess that was the Catholic. We've already gotten to the Catholic a little bit. But yeah, so now we cut back to another group therapy session, and Nancy, she starts trying to get them on her side. She starts telling them a description of Freddy. And she, starts telling them a little bit of Freddy's history, and we find out that these kids are the last kids of the parents who killed Freddy. These are the last Elm Street kids.
The descendants of Elm Street. Oh.
And this one is a group therapy session in quotes, because the kids asked like, "Oh, what was this group therapy?" And he's like, "Not officially, because Dr. Sims is not there." Because
more
Dr.
like
Gordon,
group hypnotization.
Yeah. Smooth line there, Chris. I think they should put that in the movie.
Yeah.
Not group therapy. Is this group? No, it's hypnotize. And then he just starts hypnotizing them. But yeah. Also, speaking of lines, I just had this random thought. This line we talked about earlier, the iconic Freddy line, was actually improvised.
What?
Yeah, the second half. Like, your big break on TV was officially in the script, but he added the "it's prime time" B word. So Robert Englund, once again, making up lines as he goes, and honestly, he's pretty good at it. So I'm kind of okay with it. Like, "You're all my children now" in the last movie. As I've said last time, I didn't think fit that scene, but it was a great line. But yeah, so that was just, I thought I remember that was a fact, and I wanted to bring it up before we were too far away from it. But now back to where we were. Dr. Gordon hypnotizes them with a pendulum, and he has them all go to sleep. And then they all wake up.
Go to sleep.
In quotes.
Yeah.
And Joey, he walks off, and he follows Marcy, who's the nurse from earlier, and she's like, "Hey, come here." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And she tells him that, she thinks he's cute. Then we come back to the therapy room, and the Newton's cradle starts floating randomly in the air, letting all of them know that, oh, we're in a dream still. And then
That's the balls, right?
Yeah, the balls flying in
that go
the
back and
air.
forth.
Yeah. Okay.
Come on, you're the intellectual. You're supposed to know what a Newton's cradle is. You're the smart one. You're the smart one of
That
the group.
title got thrust on me. I don't know what a Newton's. Well, I do now.
He know how to read good.
Oh, that's fair.
Newton's cradle's more of a physics thing.
That's fair. But yeah, Will, he can walk now, and he also is, his power is, he's a wizard master in his dream.
Yeah, Will has the coolest power.
Dude, the one that's
Dream
actually
warrior.
like kind of only available in dreams.
It's
yeah.
cool, but also not. It is also the lamest in actual, like, well, except for maybe Kristen. But his is the lamest in practice in the dream, because when we see him as the wizard master later, he is lame and dorky as heck.
I mean,
That
But we'll
is
get
true.
to that when we get to that, because
The
at this
wizard
point he's just kind
master.
of doing some cool magic with the Newton's cradle balls.
he turns the ball into a butterfly.
Yeah. And then they ask Kristen what
That's a
her
trick.
power is, so she does a cool back handspring and a backflip. because she's a gymnast.
Yeah, she's really acrobatic.
To be fair, Kristen already had a power, so she doesn't really need to have another power. Like, her power is getting people there, technically.
I can pull people into my dreams, and also, I can do a backflip.
It's like,
Ooh.
I mean, a lot of people can do that. It's not really a power.
No, it's a power.
Kincaid,
it's a power.
Kincaid has
a power. Do a double front flip into a drop kick. So
Kincaid,
that's a power.
Kincaid has
He's
a power.
Power Ranger.
He bends a chair, which is not something a normal human could do. The way he was doing it. He's super strong. And then Taryn, she's like, my power is beautiful.
And these two knives.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, let's not underplay the importance of the scene, because it cuts to her, and she's in like full, like, super
biker gear,
super punk garb.
And when you see her like that, you're like,
glitter.
Okay. And she says, I'm beautiful and bad. And then she switches out 2 switchblades. And you're like, all right.
All right,
that
my
line
new favorite character
is so bad, but I also love it. Like, that line is like, okay, yeah, you are beautiful and bad. Good for you, Taryn.
All right, Taryn.
I'm sure your story is going to end very happily.
Oh.
Back to Joey and the nurse.
So
Marcy. Marcy.
Joey's getting lucky.
Yeah, Marcy has Joey unzip her dress, and we get a revealing of her boobies. That's right, full boobs. And then they kiss. This is I guess the closest thing to harmonica scene in the movie. Still not really though. Just really a half-naked kiss scene. And they're tonguing it, you know. But then she bites his
like
tongue.
One of 2 people, I guess.
Yeah, she bites.
It's almost more like her tongue fuses with his.
And but she eventually pulls out this weird tongue thing.
And then shoots out her tongue like Spider-Man.
Yeah. And then shoots out 3 more of them.
His arm and legs to the bedpost.
Yeah, tying him up, and then it's Freddy, and he's here, and he gives his second
tongue.
Yeah, he gives his second quip of the movie. He goes, I don't know the exact setup. It's like, Joey, you tongue-tied.
Joey, a little tongue-tied.
Yeah, and it's like, Freddy, you.
He's a mute, and also he was making out with Freddy.
And now he's there's that.
Yeah.
So back to the other room.
Well, is it this part or later where Freddy, like, for a pretty long period of time, like, flicks his tongue? You know,
Probably.
You know, is this part or... Okay.
I would not be surprised. Here's the thing. Well, I feel like Robert Englund does that at least once a movie, so I don't know where it happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I know specifically that it happens in the Hall of Mirrors.
Yes, okay, that's what I'm thinking of.
Does feature Joey.
I also forgot to mention, when we came into this dream scene, during that whole, like, her telling him, I know about Freddy, she also tells them how Kristen has powers and how they're all going to have powers when they get here. Forgot to mention that here. That's where we're supposed to talk about Dream Warriors, right? And then, or do we just want to wait to the Dream Warriors title when we can hear the Dawkins song at the end?
Yeah.
All right, we'll wait to the Dawkins song. Which, to be fair, is a great song. I just want to put that out there already. Like, it's amazing. I love it. But we will get to the Dawkins, or Dawkins, not Dawkins. It's the Dawkins song, as in Dawkins the band, ''S. Not that I'm calling I know the band is Dawkins. I want to make sure that's clear to any huge Dawkins heads who might find this video someday.
All 2 of them.
Hey, Into the Fire is pretty dope. But yeah. Then, after he gets tongue-tied, we come back to the other room, and they realize that Joey's gone, and then their room starts to turn into a furnace, and everything starts, like, burning up, and it comes in, closes on them. Excuse me. And then they eventually find the door, but before they can open it, it's opened by Dr. Sims from the other side, and she just finds a bunch of passed out people, most of them sleeping, but Joey is in a coma. Poor Joey. Yeah. But also not that poor Joey, because somehow he didn't die. For some reason, Freddy just chose not to kill Joey for some reason, which does feel a little out of character.
Kind of just holding him there.
He's like, nah, you get to stay in coma land forever. Okay.
I guess you could say maybe he's using him as, like, bait.
Maybe.
Sure,
we'll go with that's the reason. Now so he's in a coma, and then we cut. After we find out he's in the coma, we have the bigwig from the place telling Dr. Gordon and Nancy that they're fired and they need to get out of here. They're not welcome here no more because, this is their fault. Which,
what are we supposed to tell this kid's parents?
Yeah.
Once again, From
you
the
put him
outside
on this.
looking in,
Yeah, you put him on this.
reasonable.
Yeah, you put him on this untested drug, and look what happened to him. It's like, you know what? Fair.
No, it's not untested. Nancy's on it.
Oh, okay. One case study is not enough.
All the kids were doing it.
All the one.
None of the other kids are in comas. Come on, what? That shows like 9 people have done it. Only it's 1 in 9 chance you're gonna be in a coma.
Pretty good odds, really.
Yeah.
Thinking about it.
That's a passing grade.
That's true. Well, no.
That's an A.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah. That's,
Wait a minute. No, it's not.
It's
I
not
think
an A,
it's
but
like a
it's
high
passing.
B.
It's a high B. But then we have cut
Sure.
Dr. Gordon, him and Nancy. Oh no, sorry, not Nancy. It says none, but my U kind of closed into like what looked like an A, and I thought I
Well,
just
it's
forgot.
okay. The lady who plays the nun is named Nan, so.
Really?
No.
Crazy.
Nan
Yeah.
the Nun.
Yeah. Well, Nan the nun, or Helena, which is her last name. I forgot her first name already because it's not even her real name. Mary. It's Mary Helena. Mary Helena the nun. He sees her at the top of the clock tower. So he goes to investigate and goes to reveal my
get an
least favorite
exposition dump.
part of the movie. Yeah, he goes up there, gets a little exposition dump where he finds out how that area used to be, an area that was used. And, this movie had done actually a really great job of showing, people who are in a mental facility as not super violent, bad people, which is, kind of a really negative trope that ends up happening a lot in horror movies.
And then they throw that
And then
all
they
in
go,
the garbage.
what if we didn't? And what if
Immediately.
100 of these crazy people were able to one day get a nun and do things that I definitely can't say what they did on YouTube to her. And oops, now she's pregnant.
Force her to do things she doesn't want to do.
And now she's pregnant, and she gave birth to a kid named Fred.
Yeah.
She also, real quick before I go on my rant about this scene, real quick, important plot point, she also tells him how to get rid of him by giving him a proper funeral, holy
Gotta
ground.
bury his bones in hallowed ground.
Yeah, hallowed ground. Cool. That's the end of the important part of the scene. But now I want to rant. This scene is so stupid and unnecessary.
All right,
We
thank you
already
for the rant.
have a backstory for Fred. Good old Fred was a child killer, possibly more. We did not need this weird, predestined, 100 crazy guys semen mixed together and impregnated her to make him evil. This is bad, this is stupid, and I don't get why some people like this. And because there are some people who love this part of his story. They're like, yeah, that's Freddy. Yeah, he is the son of 100 maniacs. It's like, why? Why was that necessary? No. It's gross, it's completely unnecessary, and it also almost in some way feels like they're trying to justify why Freddy is so evil when that doesn't justify no, he's just evil. We don't need this weird predestined justification for his evil. I hate
think
it.
it kind of takes away from the fact that the part of the scariness of Freddy is that he was just an evil dude.
Yeah.
And that's just a reality that could exist. No, they're no, it's he was evil because he's the result of a lady being forced into a relationship with 100 maniacs, and it's yeah, okay, but no. There's also plenty of serial killers who are just the product of completely normal households.
Yeah, and it's just I also feel like it almost tries to, and maybe not fully, and it doesn't. I don't think it's really, but it almost feels like they're trying to be well, see, it's almost like Freddy's. It's not his fault. Almost why? Why can't Freddy just be a horrible person? Why are we trying to give him this weird, darker meaning to his backstory? He was predestined to be evil because his dads were evil. Also, scientifically, just completely impossible. That's not how that would work. Only one of them. Only one of those. He's only the son of one maniac. He's only the bastard son of one maniac. Just want to put that out there scientifically.
We just don't know which one.
Yeah, we don't know which one. It's one of 100, but it's only one.
Okay, that is a really good point that y'all make, though, because something that I don't remember if we touched on this when we were talking about the first movie, but it was interesting to me that he is given pretty much no cause for sympathy, right? We understand that he was killed in a brutal way, but the personality of Freddy that we see doesn't all present a tortured soul, right? Who's just out to get his just revenge. He's just loving the experience of killing kids in the afterlife as he did, when he was really alive, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of sense of like, like he was wronged, right? And that's a good. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. This kind of sucks away a lot of that because that just made him a purely malicious character that he had no cause for sympathy for him. And now it's like, well, he was the bastard son of 100 maniacs. So, take that with a grain of salt when you consider all his murders.
Yeah. Then Nancy, we cut to Nancy. She's with Joey in the hospital, and she she yells at Freddy, who's not there, but she yells at him like, "Hey," what's the exact line? But like, give him back, or like, why did you take him? Like, I think it's give him back, something of that nature. And he, apparently she's in a dream, I guess, because he's somehow able to do this to her. So apparently her dreams, isn't, or he just now magically has powers to affect the real world, but not kill this kid. Maybe not kill him, because it's implied that he's at the end. You find out that he's like survived. So like, and no one freaks out by this carved message in him. So it's not actually happening. But she shouldn't be able to dream, so I don't know how she sees this. But I'm not going to get too much into that, because I think we've had a really great discussion, but we have like 2.5 pages left, and we're already at like an hour and 10 minutes, so we need to start rushing. So in him, she has the message that says, "Come and get him.
Come get him.
Come and get him, B-word." Because, this is that movie where, in like parodies of him, he says that word a lot. Specifically, the Rick and Morty one comes to my mind, because I love Rick and Morty, and that was the first time I kind of saw the Freddy character.
As a fellow intellectual.
Yeah, because I'm very smart.
So intellectual.
I understand the humor. But yeah, so... I know. That's fair.
I didn't even know what Newton balls were.
It's Newton's cradle.
Newton's cradle.
That's the one I didn't...
Newton's balls were entirely different
his character in that is like... The parody of him is just say that word a million times. Because this is... And it kind of does happen as the franchise goes on. And this is that first movie where we're really like, oh, okay, he's just... dropping that word a lot, which he was supposed to drop even worse words according to Wes Craven's original script, which they original screenplay, which they ended up rewriting because it was a little too dark and they wanted to take this more dark comedy take on it rather than the super dark take. He said the C word a lot in that movie. I won't say that one. Yeah, he said that word multiple times in the script.
Chips.
Knock up.
Yeah.
Sure. It's a nice punt at that word you took there. You really took a good effort. But yeah, now we have Nancy and Dr. Gordon discussing what both of them have learned. Him from the nun, her from seeing the message on his chest. Then we cut to Kristen, who's freaking out. But then we cut to Nancy and Dr. Gordon, who they found her dad. It's Nancy's dad, Mr. Thompson. Formerly Officer Thompson, now security guard Thompson.
Now drunk in a bar and wielding a strange accent.
Yeah, I think it's the actor's actual accent came out a little more. But yeah, he has a little bit of an accent. He's really drunk, and Nancy is telling her dad like, hey, I know you were part of killing Freddy. Where are his bones? We need to find his bones. And he doesn't want to help her. He's like, move on, Freddy's dead. It's like, all right. And then they go to leave. Excuse me. Dr. Gordon gets this weird thing called a page on his pager, and he knows to go call. And he calls the... I don't know what it is. Some weird technology they made up for the movie, apparently.
Are you being serious?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm making a joke.
I can't see your face right now.
That's fair. I'm making a joke that pagers aren't a thing anymore. That's the joke. But yeah, so he calls on the payphone, gets the TV room, which doesn't have a TV anymore, but they still call it the TV room. Just pointing it out. It's weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, he calls there. He talks to Taryn, and she tells Dr. Gordon that Kristen's freaking out, and she's being put in the quiet room, and they're just dating her, and that's bad because it means Freddy's gonna be able to get her. And so he tells Nancy, and he tells her to go to the hospital to go help her, and that he's gonna get Dr. Gordon to help him, or not Dr. He's gonna get Officer Thompson to help him. So he goes over and he yells at Nancy's dad, and that gets him to help him come find the remains. Then we cut to Dr. Gordon and him arriving at a church, and he takes his... Well, first off, weird thing. For some reason, Nancy's dad is driving the car when he's the one who's super drunk. Just thought it was a little weird. A little weird that Dr. Gordon didn't say, hey, let me drive, you tell me where to go. But no, he's like, you good. You're good to drive. And so he takes this, Mr. Thompson has a bottle of, like, booze in his hand. Dr. Gordon takes that, dumps it out as he walks in. He goes, he fills that with holy water and steals a crucifix and has a little conversation with a, priest, telling him, "Hey,
priest,
I'll be back." And he like gives him, he says I'm going to pay for it. He says I'm going to pay for it, and then gives him his driver's license instead, saying like I'll be back. This is, I guess, to show that I'll pay for it later.
Collateral.
Yeah. It's weird that he felt he reached into the wallet and you're like, oh, okay, he's going to pay him immediately. But no, he gives him his driver's license as collateral, which I guess...
He's the world's poorest psychiatrist.
Which would explain why he's not driving later, but at this point, before he got here, he should be driving. But yeah, so he goes off now, and we cut to Nancy, who's arriving at the hospital. But Max won't let her pass to see Kristen, because that's against, like, his one order. Like, his one order is don't let anyone in, especially Nancy. And she's like, all right, fine. Can I go talk to the, other kids and say goodbye because it's my last chance? And he's like, all right. Because Max is a real cool dude because he's played by Larry Fishburne. Good old Larry. So, yeah, she goes in. Nope. She goes to talk to the kids. But then we cut away because there's a lot of cutting back and forth now. And Nancy's dad is taking Dr. Gordon to an auto salvage yard, which I believe he works at because he does have a key to get in, and he has a security guard jacket, which I didn't even notice till this scene, but he is wearing it the whole time. So the implication is that he is no longer a lieutenant anymore. He is now
because he is a drunkard.
Yeah, he is a drunkard. So now he is a security guard at this place, or he just broke in. One of the two. I think it makes more sense for him to. It felt like there was no struggle for him to get in, so I think he had a key. It's the auto salvage yard where Freddy's remains are. Now we cut back to Nancy, and she's in her plan, and she's going to take the other kids and into the dream world to help save Kristen somehow.
Yeah.
But that's
cool
Kristen's
dream warrior powers.
Yeah.
But Kristen wasn't at the seance to pull them in. She hypnotizes them, and then they show up in...
She's a dream warrior.
I'm sorry, that's another plot hole. Because that's Kristen. And Kristen can do that even when they're not sleeping. So Kristen could have just pulled them in if it was Kristen's power to do it. But they had to go put themselves to sleep, and then Matt showed up immediately in her dream. Doesn't quite make sense.
Could Kristen do it when they're not sleeping? Because I know we see Nancy get tugged in, but is that like her waking up in her dream?
You're right, she might have woken up in her dream. So maybe she's putting them to sleep so she can pull them in from their dream. Maybe. Yeah. It's not that important how it happened. Now we have Freddy, they're there, and Freddy starts tearing up the quiet room. There's feathers flying everywhere, and those feathers, they split them up. Because now we're going to have a bunch of scenes with each of them having their own little mini nightmare. Kristen's nightmare is, what I think a lot of people's nightmares might be, which is having to watch a movie they just watched immediately again. Because we're back at the first scene again. Dawkins apostrophe S's Into the Fire is playing. Because, apparently they didn't just get him for an original song. They also played them in the movie. That might have been in the first scene, but I didn't notice it in the first scene. But I definitely noticed it here. Because they're definitely at the chorus of the Into the Fire part of the song. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, Dawkins! I didn't know they made a song for the movie until the end of it, but at that point I was like, oh, wow, cool. Random rock song I know. Cool.
Yeah. Where they basically play the first 3 minutes of the movie over again.
Slightly different dialogue because Kristen knows what's going on, so she's having slightly different dialogue with her mom, who is not actually her mom, obviously, because this is a dream, but her mom is definitely being pretty much her mom, just as not caring and whatnot. And we hear that yell again for, bourbon.
Where's the bourbon?
And then she walks out, or she gets pulled out, and Freddy comes back in with her head like, where was my bourbon? And like shows her the head. The head talks to her a little bit. And then she gets out of bed, uses her dream power, and does a backflip over the wall over him, because that's her power, remember? Her power is...
And they're going to keep doing that a lot.
That's her power, okay?
Is flips. Lots of flips.
Yeah, her power is flips. And she gets thrown through the window of her room, and it immediately comes into Nancy's house. falls down the stairs, which is Chris's next stunt. We are going to throw him through a window of one house, make him teleport into a different house, and fall down the stairs immediately.
Down a flight of stairs, yeah.
That's going to be for our third meetup. Remember, third meetup, that's when we're going to somehow pull that off.
We'll have a set built composed of 2 breakaway windows.
Breakaway windoes?
No, these are real windows.
Real deal.
No, Chris, we never said we were going to set these up as, like, the stunts. Because here's the thing. This is, the main crux of this was you saying, like, you could make that one fall. Here's the thing. That girl who in that Friday the 13th movie, she made that fall because she fell on a very thin layer of mud on top of a crash mat. You said you could do that on a thin layer of mud on top of the ground. You could do the stunt she did, because the stunt she did wasn't hard. What you're going to do is the real-life equivalent, which is impossible.
Not impossible, just improbable.
Sure.
Just drink a lot of milk for the next, few weeks.
Well, I can't. I'm lactose intolerant.
Ooh, awkward. You know who also has trouble with some things they put in their body? That's my transition into Taryn's side of the story. And she is now in her dream, which is this, seedy alleyway, and there's this homeless man who might turn into Freddy. It's kind of weird. He walks past her,
got that hat,
and then Freddy's in front of her. But and the homeless man's gone, so I guess that was Freddy, or he just made a homeless person there. Just
it was just a red herring.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And Taryn pulls out her knives because she's beautiful and bad.
That's her superpower is having knives.
Yeah. So she has a cool little knife fight, which it's a fun little knife fight with him and his finger knives.
It's a very short fight.
Yeah, it's a very short fight because he pushes her against a wall and he pulls out. We now cut to him and now he's got needles for both of his hands.
Yeah.
And he stabs in her and tells her that it's time to get high, and that kills her. Which is honestly a really sad death, I think, for her, because her character development was choosing not to take drugs, and then she still dies from them. It's all right.
And then her track marks become little mouths.
They become little mouths,
dude,
wanting it. It was creepy.
Those are the best effects of the movie.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I agree. I don't know if I agree or not agree. I might agree. I might not. After they have the night fight, we cut to Will, who is in a hallway. I feel like it's supposed to be at least reminiscent of that first dream sequence from the first movie with Tina in the hallway. At least it gave me those vibes. That hallway into the boiler room that we see in that. He's in this hallway, and there's this crazy death wheelchair at one end, and Freddy at the other, and then Freddy sends the death wheelchair at him, and he tries to get away, but he still gets knocked down. But then
his leg.
Yeah, and then he uses.
He remembers he's the wizard master.
Yeah, and this scene is awful. And he uses his awful magic glowing beams to stop the chair, and he's also wearing a really terrible wizard robe as well.
Worst wizard robe I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Wizard cloak, I think you mean.
Whatever, it's bad, is whatever you want to call it.
He looks like Dracula, but also he's just wearing a normal plaid t-shirt underneath.
Yeah, and he uses that to stop the chair, and then he starts to hurt Freddy, or at least he thinks, but he doesn't really seem to hurt Freddy that much, because Freddy grabs him after he stops him from doing it, and he just stabs him with his knife claws. And probably
I don't believe in fairy tales.
Yeah, he doesn't believe. Which is, I still feel like kind of one of the lamest kills in this movie, because it's not for him. Will had his thing. Everyone else who dies in a way that fit their character arc. Will has his I'm cool, and then it's I guess his character arc is he's not cool. That's his character arc. Is you're not cool, so you die lame. Maybe I take it back. It's actually a great death for him. Then Nancy and Kristen meet up in a room, a little girl's room, and then Kincaid goes full the Hulk, Kool-Aid Man. Lots of different characters.
Bust through the wall.
Because he's super strong, remember? That's his power.
Oh, yeah!
Doesn't say that. He does call Freddy...
Curse
a word that...
Calls him a kitty cat.
Yeah, a little kitty cat, or a female anatomy part, and he calls him that, twice in a row.
Yeah.
He's like, where you at, kitty? Come on, Kruger, kitty. It's okay. One time was all right, cool. Yeah, you said it. But then he doubled down and yeah, I'm calling Freddy. Yeah. I was okay. Maybe settle down.
Settle down.
Yeah,
And then after that, a door appears out of nowhere.
an iron door just randomly shows up in the room. They
Floating
open it,
door.
and there's a staircase inside. So they're got to go down the staircase. But before we see what's down that staircase, we cut back to Dr.
Back
Gordon.
to the scrapyard.
Yeah,
Woo!
and Nancy's dad, they're at the scrapyard, and they find the Cadillac where Freddy's remains are in. Excuse me, in the trunk.
Yeah.
And after what felt like a really prolonged scene of struggling to get the Cadillac trunk open with his shovel, it eventually pops open.
That's the engine hood.
Yeah,
Just
and
like to point out.
was it the engine hood? Not bad.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell. I thought it was the trunk.
Fair.
Are you sure? Because I mean, there's space in there.
I think it was the trunk.
It looked like
I'm
the
pretty
front
sure it
caddy.
was the trunk,
It probably was the back.
since the taillights were next to it.
Oh.
Yeah, I did think it was a trunk.
I
But
was like half asleep watching this whole movie, so you gotta keep that in mind.
Okay.
I made a lot of mistakes that Austin could testify to.
Yeah.
Like when they first introduced Kincaid, and I go, "Is that Jesse from the first movie?"
Yeah, there's a scene where
They're
we
like
see.
twins,
There's
really.
a scene where we see Kincaid that we didn't mention where we see, like, in the scene where we're meeting Dr. Gordon, they walk past the quiet room and we see Kincaid inside. And Chris goes, "Is that Jesse?" I'm like, "No, that guy's an African American." And Jesse was not.
Very white boy.
Yeah. Also, we talked about this. Jesse would not be able to be in this movie because of all the straight talk.
Yeah, and also the fact that I think he's dead.
But is he?
I
Because
think.
Nancy's not. So who knows?
But Nancy's mom is.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Once again, I think the actual answer is that movie doesn't happen according to the timeline of this movie.
Yeah. Probably not.
But where were we?
Uh,
So they pop that open. And then we cut back to the
Find the
Dream
remains.
Warriors. That's what I call them here because it's just all three of them. I didn't want to write down all their names again.
Fair.
And they find this hellish boiler room where Joey is, tied up still on that bed frame in the middle over a giant pit.
Oh,
And
fire.
Freddy is there too. And they tell him to... Nancy tells him to let him go. And
Classic
Freddy's like,
mistake.
"If you say so." And he goes to
Very
untie...
poor choice of words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes to start untying the tongues, or he like unties the first one, and then the rest do it themselves. I guess you have to start. He had to start it manually, but then the rest of the tongues were like, "Oh, okay, cool, we're untying."
Nancy runs down two
Yeah.
large pipes, and then
Yeah.
Kincaid catches one because it starts to slip. And then she, of course, saves Joey at the
Yeah.
last second.
But she's not quite strong enough, and they both start to almost slip. But then, Kincaid grabs them because remember,
Kincaid, woo.
Kincaid is strong. That's his
Strong
power.
man.
So he pulls them
Yeah.
out. And then while that's happening, Kristen starts a cool flip fight with Freddy. She does like a backflip or two. He does like a cool kip up. Like it. I mean, is it
And
stupid?
then
Is it silly?
She does
Yeah.
like a double front flip into a drop kick,
Yeah.
and it's
Is it
pretty,
stupid
pretty
and
neat.
silly? Yeah. But do I love
Absolutely.
it? Yeah, I do. It's pretty dope. But yeah, then Freddy grabs Kincaid by the throat. Then Kincaid runs over and hits Freddy with a pipe. Then it does nothing, and Freddy picks him up. Then Nancy runs in with a smaller pipe, because that was like a big pipe. This is like a small like rod, iron rod almost, and stabs him through with it.
Like a
And
piece of
Freddy's
rebar.
doesn't care at all, pulls it out, and
Yeah.
tells us the reason he doesn't care is because he's got souls of all his victims on his stomach, and it was
He's stronger now.
yeah, he's stronger because of it. Like, here's the thing. It was a cool effect, but it's also why? It's silly. It's pointless. I don't see why he needed souls on his gut. But it was, like, a cool, practical little, puppet thing they had there. I thought,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's weird. It's gross looking
Very-
in the right way.
Very the thing reminiscent.
I could see that for sure. Then we cut back to, once again, cutting back. So we're back to Nancy and Dr. Gordon, and,
Nancy's dad and Dr. Gordon.
Nancy's dad.
Not Nancy.
Not
back to
Nancy,
Nancy's
Doctor.
dad, Dr. Security Guard Thompson, and Dr. Gordon, and Dr. Neil Gordon. We cut back to them for a literal split second, and then cut right back. I started to write down cut to them, but then we were already back to the kids. I was like, oh, I guess nothing. Okay.
We're being reminded.
Yeah, then we cut back. Yeah, we cut back. It's because they grabbed the bones. We see them grab the bones. Then we cut back to Freddy, like, realizing, oh, they got my bones. So he drops Kincaid and disappears. Now we're actually back to the scrapyard, where all the cars start freaking out, and a couple of them fall onto, Nancy's dad's car. So they're trapped.
Now they're trapped. Well,
and in a scene that was supposed to be, maybe cool, maybe, I don't know. I don't think it was, though. Freddy reanimates a skeleton, which I believe they were trying to do, like, what's that, like, Ray Harryhausen, like the classic, like, miniature artist who did, like, oh man, I'm hitting myself. Like, what?
Night of the Living Dead?
No, this is the guy who did, this is older. Like, he did, like, skeletons, like, fight each other in, like, this other movie, like, a long time ago. I'm blanking on what it's called. Clash of the Titans. He's the guy who did all, like, the miniatures and stuff for, like, Clash of the Titans stuff. That guy.
Clash of the Titans is kind of cool, yeah.
Yeah, like, that style of, like, those kind of skeletons. What they were going for here, and they kind of almost hit it. The problem is, the problem is they hit about that quality, and now we're in 84, not the 40s.
Yeah.
Might be 50s, but you get my point. Like, it's a long way further, and this does not hold up in this movie like that. No. Like, you look back at that and, like, it doesn't hold up, but you're like, oh, wow, that's really impressive for what they had at the time. This, you go, okay, all right, that's kind of cheesy.
I'm watching a Saturday morning cartoon.
But yeah, so Freddy's skeleton starts attacking Dr. Gordon, and as he attacks Dr. Gordon, he knocks out Gordon. I believe he also, around this point, he throws Freddy's dad.
Nancy's dad?
Yeah.
Yep.
Did I say Freddy's dad? He kills Freddy's dad, the 100 maniacs. He throws all 100 maniacs at the back of this car where there's this pipe that sticks out and kills Nancy's dad. He throws his dad's but kills Nancy's dad. It's a really weird scene. It makes no sense.
Yeah. I'll tell you something that was a waste. Y'all didn't mention this. You were talking about Fishburne and the other famous actors earlier, but John Saxon starred alongside Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon. And that's how I knew him. And so I thought, like, are we going to finally have a fight scene with John Saxon? He's going to do some cool martial arts stuff?
No,
and then he's immediately impaled.
Yeah.
No, it'd be hard to choreograph a fight with a skeleton, I suppose.
Yeah, with a skeleton that's not actually there.
But yeah. Where was I? I don't remember. That was a good. I really like that point. Skeleton kills him.
Dr. Gordon.
Skeleton kills him. We cut away from Skeleton Freddy, and we cut back to regular Freddy, who starts using some mirrors to attack the kids because they're all in this mirror room, and
this is where Freddy goes bah.
Yeah, he does a little tongue trick. And he pulls Will's dead. Pulls Kincaid, Nancy, and Kristen into mirrors, leaving Joey. And Joey finds his power, though, which his power is he can yell no.
Real loud.
Not really. Yeah. It wasn't even portrayed as that loud. Like, I know it breaks...
It's loud to Freddy.
It immediately breaks the stuff, and it, like, freaks out Freddy. But, like, I was expecting, like, some sort of, like, piercing no. But no, it's like, no!
Like an opera singer.
Yeah, and it's like, to actually make sense for it to break that stuff. But no, it's just a no! Okay, all right, but it's broken. He breaks Freddy. They pop out of the mirrors. And it seems like it's over, you know? Nancy's like, hey, it's over. We're good now. And then weird light flickers in, and it's the ghost of her dad. And he's talks about how he's crossed over, you know, and he's, you know, implying that, you know, he's dead now. And he comes to tell her, like, how he loves her and he's always loved her. And he's, you know, a little bit like...
Sorry for all the things I did.
Sorry for what he did. But wait, no, he didn't. That's not him. That's stupid. That'd be really lame if this movie did that. Of course they didn't. Freddy's here now, and he stabs Nancy in the gut. And it seems like she's dead. She is, but not quite. So she will, but not yet. But yeah, then he closes him and Kristen in this room because he, you know, leaving Kincaid and Joey in the other room, and he goes towards Kristen, but before he's able to get to her, Nancy attacks him because she's not dead. She grabs his own hand and stabs him into his stomach somehow. Somehow he had no power to stop her, but he didn't. It was cool, and now he got stabbed by her, which gives them just enough time for, in the real world, apparently. Somehow, Nancy screaming during all this woke up Dr. Gordon.
Dr. Gordon.
Just accept it. Move on. Don't try to think of logic. It happened. Okay?
Who had a thin layer of dirt thrown over him before, you know.
But yes, he gets up and he just pushes Freddy's, you know, bones in real easy. Pours some the holy water on him.
Holy water.
Says a little funeral like thing about how like laying him to rest and stuff, and then places the cross on his head. And while all that's happening, we're cutting back to the other room where Freddy gets like an actually really cool effect, especially like if you think about the time when it was made. Freddy like has like these like from the holy water where like it dripped on him, like light starts coming out of him, and then like the cross also like makes like a cross mark on his forehead, and like light comes out of it, like which is really impressive when you think about it. Like this is pre-digital effects. They had to go in and like rotoscope light into this. Like it was crazy how they did this, but they did it, and that kills Freddy. And then Nancy, he dies in Kristen's arms, and she's saying, "Oh, I'm gonna take you to a dream where you don't die." She doesn't though. She says that, but she doesn't do it. But yeah, now we're at Nancy's funeral, and Mary Helena's there. So Dr. Gordon's like, "Oh, there's her," and so he walks off towards her, and he walks around the corner, and oh my goodness! Like
Amanda Kruger's gravestone.
Like I already spoiled earlier, it's Amanda Kruger, and she's not there. The ghost of the nun isn't there anymore, and also on the bottom of the tombstone, it talks about her. She's also known as Mary Helena.
That was her nun name.
That's right. So of course you couldn't tell the whole. I mean, maybe you could because she kind of had ghostly vibes the whole time, and I did spoil it. But she's a ghost the whole time. Not only was that scene lame and stupid and gives him backstory I didn't want, she's a ghost this whole time. There's ghosts in the world now. Which, like, yeah, fine. It's a world where Freddy exists. There could be ghosts, but that hasn't been established that there are ghosts. So I'm annoyed that there's just his mom's ghost shows up now to stop. Why didn't she want to stop him in the first movie? Whatever. Nope, she was cool. She wanted Johnny Depp to die. She's on Amanda Heard's side. Is that her name? Not Amanda. What's her name? Whatever. I was gonna try to make a topical joke about like the chick Johnny Depp's actually with and how they're like their nasty divorce.
Oh yeah.
Is it Amanda Heard? Something like that. I don't know.
I believe that's it.
Yeah. I was trying to make a topical joke, but then I realized, is that her name? Oops. But yeah, so now we cut back to Dr. Gordon. He's sleeping, and he's sleeping in bed, and then he looked
at the popsicle house for some reason.
Yeah, he took the popsicle house, of course, because he liked it. And while he's asleep, the light turns on. So Freddy could come back, I guess. Even though, according to this movie's mythology, he shouldn't be able to. But, sequels and money. So, then we have the closing credits, which, as we've already alluded to multiple times, the epic original song, Dream Warriors by Dokken plays. And it's honestly pretty dope. And they're Dream Warriors. And that was Dream Warriors. And that is probably our longest episode ever. So I'm going to go right into my thoughts. The movie was really cool. I liked it. I think it might be my favorite of the franchise so far. Probably going to be my favorite of the franchise, period, because the franchise starts dipping after this one. But I think it's really good. I've kind of said throughout my things I like the the Dokken song. That's great. I love the cast. The cast is so good. Like the acting and like the writing for them. Like this is the first time I've cared about really any characters in these movies except for Joey in the last movie. Jesse in the last movie. Like we talked about in our first episode, I didn't like Nancy's acting in the first movie, so I wasn't pulled in by even her. So that movie had nothing for me, characters wise. This movie has had every character that like mattered, I cared about. Like, yeah, obviously I didn't care about random sleazy guy who tried to hit on I forgot her name. It shows how much I care about her.
Erin.
Yes. But yeah, like I thought they were all really well written. Like even the scenes that normally would irritate me didn't in this movie. I thought Heather, can't remember how to pronounce her last name, who plays Nancy, was a lot better in this movie than the first movie. And my only complaint genuinely is the whole 100 bastard son of 100 maniacs plot line. Like it's so pointless, and I think if anything cheapens the inherent real world darkness and just evilness of him, and almost tries to give a reasoning behind it, which takes away from just him being a horrible person.
Yeah. I would say, I don't know if this is my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie, but it's definitely really good. I did like it a lot. Like Austin was saying, I think all the characters in this movie were written really well and acted really well as well. With only like a few exceptions in a few scenes. Because this is, fun fact, Patricia Arquette's first acting role. And I mean, you can tell in parts, but for the most part, she does a pretty solid job. And you know what she doesn't do, she makes up for in front flips and back flips, which definitely were totally done by her.
Totally.
But no, yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I like the thematic kills that, when they did happen, were really, really dope. Yeah. My main complaint, aside from the incredibly corny skeleton, would be the cheapening of Freddy's background in general, with the whole we've said it 1,000 times, bastard son of a maniacs. It's just unnecessary. You really could have left that out of the movie, and it would have still been fine. You would have had a slightly shorter runtime, but in my opinion, would have maybe still a slightly more impactful movie.
They could have literally saved the movie by just still having her be his ghost mom, who just lived long enough to see him be a child killer and wanted him dead because of that. They literally just cutting out. I still have been mad about Ghost Mom, but Ghost Mom would have been fine as long as we just that. Sorry. Now Isaiah, please go. I'm sorry.
I'll keep it pretty short since we've got a real long episode here. But I think that you can't replace really well-written characters. That's the most important thing, any movie. But push comes to shove, I think Freddy was scarier in the previous two. So it depends on which one of those you value more. Like I said, personally, I think I value good characters and, good lines, good dialogue, all that more. But at the end of the day, I'm also watching a scary movie, right? And they changed his voice. And I don't know. I mean, Austin might be changing my mind to the primetime line. I keep going back to that line as emblematic of the way this movie worked. I don't know. It's just kind of, I don't know. I don't know what I think about it now. Austin's confused me. But yeah. So I think those are a really big strength and a pretty big weakness. And it just depends on how much you weigh each one into the importance of the movie.
Yeah. What you prefer in a Nightmare on Elm Street movie?
Right. Yeah.
No, that's solid points.
That's been our really, really long episode of
longest episode of Horror Boys ever. I've been Austin. That's been Chris and Isaiah. We'll be back next week with Can You Guess It?
Our 2-long-hour episode
on Part 4, Dream Master. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Later.